Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interviewing Wednesdays. We're very glad you're with us today. It's June 30th, 2021, the last day of the first half of the year. Hard to believe half the year is now gone. For those on Zoom, if you have any questions, please just enter your questions into the chat box. And for those on Facebook, please just enter your questions in the comment field. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. If you, by participating in this event, and if you have your camera or microphone on, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that comments in the Zoom chat window do not appear in the recording. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org. to help those in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in their job search. In 2012, I started a second website called careerusa.org to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s, and I'll tell you about our upcoming program at the end of this session that's happening this Friday. And since 2017, I've been part of the practice interview team, and you'll hear more about that in just a second. Well, we've got two speakers who have put together an outstanding 13-part workshop on how to conduct an interview. Who knew it was so difficult? So, gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, who knew there were just so many things to talk about regarding interviewing. So my name is Mark McDonald. I've been involved with the pit crew since 2013, and before that I had a career in the telecommunications equipment industry, and a few months before 13, like November of 2012, I got laid off for the third time in 10 years working in that industry, and that was it. 3 strikes and you're out. I started volunteering with the pit crew and continued my job search, but it was very difficult to get back into my industry that I'd had my career in. I took a bridge job for a couple of years, but now I'm retired, and that whole time since 2013 I've been able to continue to be involved in the pit crew, and even through now this transition to online service. So the pit crew is the practice interview team. We offer the opportunity for you to have a mock interview, but it's a very customized and personalized mock interview based on a job description that you send in. And I have a group of volunteers, so there's no charge for any of the services we provide. I have a group of volunteers who have all been hiring managers, and they're the ones that give you the interview. So we take a look at the information that you've sent in. We come up with questions we want to ask you and the situations we want to discuss. And then your interview takes about 45 minutes. It's recorded on the Zoom platform, so you get a copy of it. And then afterwards, there's some feedback and question and answer session. So you're getting feedback from people who've hired people to work for them, right? They've hired people as part of their professional responsibility. So that's the magic of the pit crew, is that feedback. And so if you're ready to practice, when you're ready to practice, send your information to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. So there it is circled, and I'll post it up in the chat window as well. And also my LinkedIn profile will be in that comment, so you can just click on that and send and include a message in your request to link in with me. That's all I need, is a brief message that said we met on Interview Wednesday. You know, a lot of people try to contact me that I'm really confused about where I might have met them, so this will help me sort it out. Just let me know. And that's all I need. I'll add you to my network, and then you'll have some more contacts to use for finding people inside your target companies. The pit crew also offers one-way practice interviews, which are a little bit different than the two-way ones. Of course, the two-way ones, there's other people on the other end. For one-way interviews, companies are starting to use these for screening interviews. It's a very strange experience knowing that there isn't anybody at the other end of the line. You're just literally talking to the computer, and it's being recorded. So I give you an opportunity to practice. We use a tool called Easy Hire, which is a tool that companies purchase to manage this for themselves. Jeff arranged for it to be donated, and the pit crew is using it I give you the questions in advance and you get a link to the tool. And then after that, it's pretty much autopilot. You engage with the tool, you answer the questions. After you're done, you get a link to the video, and you're the only one who sees that. Nobody else will ever see it unless you decide to share it with them. And so you can see how you did on camera in this unique kind of situation where there's nobody at the other end. I recommend you do it. It only takes, besides the preparation time, the interview only lasts a maximum of 12 minutes. You get 3 minutes for each question. So give it a go in case you get a opportunity to have a one-way video screening interview. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Mark. Walt, good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Walt Glass. And I enjoy helping people with their interviewing skills as well. I do it a little bit differently than the mock interview. So I do an informal interview. It's called the Interview Success Workshop. I do it on Tuesdays from 10 to 12. Only have 2 participants at a time. And if demand goes up, I can schedule other times besides the Tuesday regularly scheduled program. Now, what is this workshop about? It's about the fundamentals of interviewing. So before we get into doing a real interview, we want to know how to differentiate ourselves and how to sell who we are, what we do, and how we can help. So we cover the 11 basic categories of questions, their motives, approaches, strategies, options, ways that we might answer those questions, because it all depends on who's asking, what the question is, and where you are in the process as to how you might choose an option to respond. So with this basic information, then you can go to the next level, which says, now that I know what I need to prepare, how I can prepare it, some things I can do in advance, then I'm ready to do more of the mock style of interview, which you can also do with me as well, but still in an informal manner. I don't like learning in a hot seat, anxiety and stress and all that sort of thing. Brian took the workshop yesterday. You can see he has no wounds. He survived. He's alive. He's doing okay. So why can't we just enjoy learning and improving, which is what it's focused upon. So if you'd like to sign up, just go to my LinkedIn page. There's about section, gives you all the details of the workshop. It is free. You're going to get some goodies. You'll get a video and a handout. The video goes all about the handout. It's an hour long. Talks about the primary things of interviewing and some other things that differentiate ourselves from other candidates in that handout and video. So I'll be glad to have you participate. Just send me an email to that walt.glass@yahoo.com. Say you're interested, and I'd like to schedule some dates, and I'll send you back some availability, and we can go from there. So glad to have you join. Also do the easy hire thing. If you're interested in doing the one-way practice with the basic questions, I offer that as well. So come on down, sign up, join in. We'll have some learning without squirming.
Walt, thank you very much. Well, today is session number 9, demonstrating enthusiasm and changing careers or industries. So gentlemen, take it away.
All right, just a moment, and here we go. There we go. There we go. Demonstrating enthusiasm and changing careers or industries. So we had, after we did this the first time, we looked at the time that we had used up during each session, and we had some extra time available in this session. So we added a new topic. So this has been here since, I don't remember now, but the January session, it was definitely there. And so if you after this, you can come back and look at the recording. But if you go farther back, then you're not going to see it. So changing careers and industries, 2 topics today. Walt's got some fantastic stuff on this topic. And demonstrating enthusiasm. So let's look at the schedule and let me put this into context. So we are on session 9 now, 4 more to go after this one. And the way this breaks down, if you want to go and look at some of the previous sessions, the first 5 were all about preparing to interview. We are now in the second group of 5, which is all about effective interviewing. And coming up today, demonstrating enthusiasm and then building rapport. Changing careers and industries is kind of a bonus. It's a good place to put it in from a timing perspective. And then after that, there'll be 3 sessions on kind of advanced topic, target companies and networking, and difficult interviewers, how to handle difficult interviewers and their difficult questions, and then avoiding mistakes. So common mistakes that we see in the pit crew, Walt sees in his workshop all the time. I mean, so we'll cover those in the hopes that you'll be able to avoid them, being aware of them. And so session 13 will round it out. I say those are available online. That's in Career USA YouTube channel, the Career USA YouTube channel. Jeff will have some information about that at the end, but go to YouTube, type in Career USA, all one word, in the search window, and it'll take you, to the Career USA YouTube channel. And there's a lot of stuff in there. Everything that Jeff does is there. One of the sections is about interviewing and has all of these sessions which we did in January, February, and March, and are identical, same content, same order to what we're doing now. So if you want to go and look at a topic that you've missed in the past, that's where you go. And topics that are coming up in the future, you can go to the January, February, March sequence, and you'll find them there as well. Now, in just a moment, well, I think it's right now, we're going to have a little more interactive session. We've been trying to make these more interactive as we go, and we've got 3 polls that you're going to get a chance to respond to. But first, before we get started, I want you to put in the chat window, please, any questions that you want to make sure we cover about demonstrating enthusiasm or about changing careers or industry. So we'll take a couple of minutes here, give you a chance to think about that and put in those questions. And we want to do this before we get started so we can make sure we highlight those questions and make sure we cover them if we weren't already planning to cover them. So this is part of the interactive feedback we're looking for. What things are on your mind about demonstrating enthusiasm or changing careers and industries? Oh, my mouse went crazy there. I touched it. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask? If you do think of a question, you can put it in the chat window anytime. We'll be monitoring that. We have some breaks built in to answer those questions. And here's one from Brian. If you were trying to transition to the software industry and your experience was more than 15 years, how do you go about using this experience? Okay, really good question. And transitioning industries, we'll cover that. Walt will cover that. All right, well, let's go on then to, you guys can continue to type in your questions. We got a poll here, so look at the next slide. And I think Jeff is going to bring this poll up. So there we go. What is the percent of the hiring decision what percent of the hiring decision is based upon enthusiasm and interest in the job and company? So how important do you think demonstrating enthusiasm or interest in the position is and the ultimate decision and the final call of whether you're going to be hired or not? All right, we have 9 out of 16. Got to get a few more. There we go. See, if I was Walt, I'd have a poem to tell right now. All right, let's call it there. And what do we have? We have about, well, the largest number was 61 to 70%. So that's about a third of you. See, and then about 25% were 50 to 60%. So there you go. And even some as high as 80%. Wow, there you go. So that's like 83%. Say it's more than half, 50% or higher is more than half. So there you go. Yeah, it's true. It's true, definitely. Let me shut this down. Okay. All right, let's get started with my portion, and then Walt's going to speak on enthusiasm. There's a bit of overlap in our presentation here. We coordinated on the topics, but we didn't coordinate on our perspective. So we each share our perspective, and there's a bit of overlap in this one. And then we're going to go over changing careers and changing industries, and Walt's going to be the presenter for all of that. So let's talk about the definition of being enthusiastic. And next week, we're going to talk about building rapport. So sometimes these might get confused, and they're certainly connected, because if you're enthusiastic, it also helps build rapport. But we'll talk about next week some very specific things to do about building rapport, and this week some very specific things to do about being enthusiastic. And I think I was an engineer. I was trained as an engineer. I worked as an engineer, a design engineer, for about the first half of my career, and then I got into business management. So I can relate to introversion. Worked with a lot of people who are introverted. I'm reasonably introverted myself. And so one of the things I focus on is helping people who are introverted demonstrate their enthusiasm. So I'm going to sprinkle throughout my comments here things that focus on introverts. And so the number one here is if you're not an enthusiastic person, then really what you need to do is show interest. You need to show interest. And so every time you hear enthusiastic, you want to say, how do you be enthusiastic? How do I show interest? Okay, how do I show interest? That's the question. And they are equivalent, okay? Showing interest in the things that we do and getting pleasure from doing them. So that's what being enthusiastic is. Having an active and motivated attitude instead of a passive one. You're very engaged in what you like to do. Enthusiasm means having a good attitude and receiving satisfaction from getting things done and pursuing our dreams. Good attitude is very important there. And I talk a little bit about your state of mind, and being unemployed can be kind of a beat down sometimes, and that'll show through in your interviews. So you need to really work on fostering a good attitude and be proud of the work that you've done in the past, and glad to talk about it and eager to get involved in doing it again. Now, building rapport is a little bit different. It's more of trying to build a connection or a relationship with someone else, okay? So being enthusiastic is showing interest, and building rapport is working on a connection between you, and a one-on-one connection, where you come to realize that you have common perspective. You may have some things in common that you pursue outside of work. And so it's a bond that forms when we discover that we understand or share one another's values and priorities in life, okay? And sometimes that happens very naturally. You may have had this happen to you even in an interview situation, but there's things you can do specifically to encourage it next week. Stay tuned next week. Okay, here's my kind of agenda for today. We're going to demonstrate enthusiasm by preparing for it, okay? By using words that demonstrate enthusiasm or interest, by living it, okay? Using our attitude, our positive outlook, by our demeanor and our interview etiquette. We're going to demonstrate it. We're going to take actions during and after the interview, well, even before, in preparation. And a few comments at the end about enthusiasm for highly introverted people, okay? Now, here's what I suggest. Good preparation. We spent 5 of the 13 sessions just on preparing to interview. So it's very important that you be well prepared. So let's talk a little bit about specifically how you prepare to be interested in showing your interest in the position. And so number one is a customized cover letter. Now, there's a lot of debate on whether cover letters are ever read. I think the latest thing I heard is that recruiters don't read them, but hiring managers do. Carol Brickell has some data from her, from the organization that gave her coaching credentials, that they had their annual meeting a few months ago, and that 62% of hiring managers will read the cover letter or take a look at the cover letter. Okay, I think anecdotally, you know, oftentimes recruiters speak, and you know, to job search organizations, and you know, I think they often say they don't look at them. So there you go. But hiring managers do. But it's a really good effort to go through to be prepared for your interview, and where you put together this description of what they need and how you have it, you know, where in your experience you have that. And so the most important thing there is what they need. And so you may decide to send this in, or you may not, but it's a good idea to prepare this. So when you go into the interview, you know off the top of your head, well, this is what you're looking for. This is what I found on the job description. And this is what I believe is the most important to you. And then you want to ask some questions, you know, to make sure that that's correct. But what you've demonstrated is your analysis and the time you've spent, and therefore your interest in the job. Okay. You also want to customize even before you get that interview. When you send in your resume, you want to tune it up to the language they use and the needs that they have. Okay. So that's another way that you show interest. It makes it easy for the interviewer or for the search engine or the AI, the keyword search, to pick you out of the hundreds of resumes that have been submitted, because it's focused on exactly what they need. Okay, now I'm not saying that you make things up. I'm just saying that well, here's my resume, my big resume advice that I'd heard someone say recently. It makes so much sense. Resumes are not read, resumes are scanned. So when someone sees a resume, they're looking for certain things. So make those things easy to see, using their language and addressing their needs, and that'll help you show interest, show preparation. Okay. Don't forget to do your research on the company, its products, its business environment. Okay, but when you come well prepared, Walt says this as well, you know, it's the beginning, right? It's the beginning. This candidate's really well prepared. They must be very interested in this job. That's the conclusion that'll be drawn by the interviewer. Have your list of questions, okay, and prioritized. 10 questions we recommend that you have at least. You might have more. You probably won't get to ask them all, but they're prioritized. Some of them may get answered during the course of the interview. You don't even have to ask them. But when you get your opportunity to ask a question, you know, pull one from your list. And then you're going to have some specific questions that you want to prepare to ask at the beginning of the interview, right after you make your opening statement, and you tell them how you can help them based on your analysis of the job description. You're going to want to ask some clarifying questions or some supportive questions to find out if your analysis is, you know, how correct your analysis is, what truly is most important to them. So there's lots of different ways you can ask those questions. I'll give you some examples in a second. And we've talked about them in the past. I think just last week, asking questions was the topic last week. Work product, it's really good to bring some work product to show off. Okay, now you may not have any work product that's available to you. It may be confidential information, but if you do, even in the virtual world, you can say, well, you know, I have this report here. You can show it. You know, I have this report here, or I have this product brochure that I put together, or I have if you're in creative arts, you know, you probably have a portfolio, and you probably have an online portfolio. But assuming that you're not, you know, you can show some of your work. And so would you like me to tell you about how I put this together, or how I did this analysis? And it's not something that you'd necessarily leave behind if you were meeting face to face. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you don't. So you don't really need to send it to them either in advance. You just use it kind of as a prompt or a prop that says, I have relevant work history, and this is an example, okay, so that you might be interested in hearing about. Now, if you don't have any of that kind of stuff, I recommend you make a 30, 60, 90-day plan. And this is a 30, 60, 90-day achievement plan, not, I'm going to spend 30 days checking all the coffee options in the coffee bar and getting to know people around me. That's just basic stuff. You need to make a 30, 60, 90-day achievement plan because they're hiring you to get some things done. So put that together, and then you can talk about it. You can mention that you've got it, and if it brings up any questions, or you can review it for them. Just another way to show interest, preparation, dedication to being the top candidate for this job. Okay, using your words to demonstrate enthusiasm. Well, guess what? There's in openings and closings, the session on openings and closings, we talk about a statement of enthusiasm. Right up front, you tell them why you're interested in the job, and you give two very specific reasons, right, that you're interested in the job. And then you often, almost always, like 2/3 of the time, maybe a little more, you get a chance to make an opening statement. That's the tell me about yourself. So take a look at session 6 if you want to get some more information about that. So use those words to tell them exactly how you can help them and why you're motivated to come to work, to do that job, to come to work at that company, and how it fits into your career, because the motivation is a big part of your enthusiasm for the job. You put it in a bigger context when you talk about why the timing, the arc of your career, why this is the right job for you at the right time. Okay, definitely approach the interview with curiosity. Okay, and so at the beginning, you're going to ask some questions for sure. Most people do not ask questions during the interview, and you're missing a big opportunity. You really are. And here's how you ask those questions. You say, I'm curious to know, or I'm curious to hear, or I'm curious to learn about, or I'm curious to understand. Curiosity is a very powerful way to demonstrate interest and enthusiasm. You can say, if you get tired of saying I'm curious about and you don't want to overuse it, right? You can say, I was wondering about, they may ask a question, you can say, wow, I was wondering about that. So, then you answer the question that they ask you, and then you may ask them a question I was wondering about. And I was wondering about that because, right? Give the reason. And I find it interesting that, or I found it interesting that if they ask you, something, have you read our vision statement? What do you think of our vision statement? You say, I found it interesting that, and to tell them what you think the most interesting thing was. And then you can ask them, what's your perspective on that? I mean, what do you think is the most powerful thing in the vision statement? So that's a good way to build rapport now. So these are connected, right? Showing your interest and enthusiasm, building rapport are connected. Positivity talk. Okay, a few people who come to the pit crew do this. It's very effective. And these are, I would call these little quips that you might throw in. So they ask you a question, tell me about a time where, something happened, and you say, wow, this is going to be fun. And then you start telling them the story. Or you could say, okay, I got quite a few to pick from here. Let me think for a second. These little things like that really go a long ways for demonstrating your interest and enthusiasm. And they're not difficult. But they do have to be genuine. And I think it's a good idea to practice using positive talk in all of your conversations with your spouse, with your kids. There's kind of a neutral way to say things. There's definitely a negative slant of things, but there's also, positivity talk. There's power talk. It's a thing, right? Using positive words. and showing empathy. And this usually comes up when you want to show empathy for your previous employer. So, nobody really likes to have layoffs, and it's as difficult for the employer as it is for the employee. And so, you can share that empathetic perspective, and I think it impresses interviewers that you have kind of a balanced perspective, that you have some business savvy, some business acumen. If you kind of understand what happened in the past at your previous employer, based on a business perspective, right? It's nothing personal, really, even though it may have put you in a very difficult situation. You understand why it was necessary. Okay, positive attitude. So I really, if you have some niggling doubts, if you have some negativity towards how you were treated in the past, that is going to show through. It's just going to leak through. And so you need to work on that. Keep a journal, write down those things that bothered you. At some point, you want to burn that thing down, let those feelings go, think about the business and what they had to do and why they had to do it. And no doubt about it, I coach people on why they left their last position, and a lot of people are not treated very well as the end approaches. But there's still usually some larger reason behind it, usually financial, right? So they were, when you're trying to bail water out of your sinking ship, at some point you lose, you can't bail any more water out. And so you have to let some people out of the boat. And so getting to that, sometimes generates some bad behaviors. But thinking of it in a bigger context will help you realize that it wasn't you, it was the situation, that forced this kind of reaction. And so that'll help you be very positive, because you need to have those positive thoughts in your mind, or words and phrases and how you choose to say things are going to be a little less than positive, and that'll be bad for showing your enthusiasm and interest in coming to work for this new company. So don't say, unfortunately, the company had to lay me off. Just don't say that. I hear that quite frequently. Unfortunately, I had to be laid off. You can say the company needed to lay me off. Okay, you understand they needed to lay you off. So that shows empathy. Are there any areas that you have reservations regarding my qualifications? Just stop right there. Don't say that I can clear up for you. This is actually what somebody said in a practice interview, and that was a great question right up to, can I clear that up for you? So this is kind of a subtle thing, right? To say, can I clear that up for you? What does that imply? It's whatever you're thinking is a misconception, so I need to clear it up. And that's not very positive. That's not a very positive thing to say to somebody. Now, here's a couple of good ones, and I like, so when you think about asking questions, think about sending a message or making a statement. So, is there anything that we discussed today that would cause you to hesitate in recommending me for the next step? Okay. The action you're asking for, the call to action is, please recommend me for the next step. Okay. That's the call to action part of this statement. Now, you've asked a question. Is there anything that's going to cause you to hesitate? Because you're definitely indicating that you want to be advanced to the next step by the question that you asked. And similarly, asking how you compare to the ideal candidate says, I want to be the ideal candidate. Okay. I want to be the top performer. So how do I compare? You're asking for feedback. Asking for feedback is a very positive thing as well. And if I was a spectacular success in this role after 6 months, what would I have accomplished? A very specific question about how you can help them, okay, in the near term. And I wouldn't wait till the end of the interview to ask this question. Ask this question earlier, like right after the opening statement. What are your top priorities? How do you think I can help the most? And, if I got to outstanding merit review in 6 months, what would I have done? Those are great questions to demonstrate your interest and enthusiasm in helping them specifically with what they need done in the next few months. Okay, actions. Okay, include that cover letter in your application. You did the work, you've done the analysis, go ahead and send it in. Recruiter may not look at it, but it sounds like the hiring managers do. And do the work and tailor your resume. Some people coach that you just need a generic resume, but tune it up for every opportunity you get. So it's easy to scan. The things they're interested in are close to the top, easy to find, and put you, in a good position to be selected by whatever method they use to screen out those resumes. Bring a notepad. So when we get back to meeting face to face, you want to bring something to write on. You want to have your prioritized questions in there, your extra resumes, a copy of the job description, your cover letter, your work product. You want to have it all in there. Now, even in the virtual world, when the interview gets started, you can say, well, just want to let you know, I have a copy of the job description. I have a copy of my resume. I have some questions written down here that I may want to ask. I've got the cover letter that I included, and I've got some work product to share with you. So you can just verbalize all that. They can't see it, but you can tell them, I've got this stuff. There you go. I have done my homework. I'm really interested in this position, and let's get started. I'm eager to go. Be intentional. Okay. Remember that you're interviewing for a job. You want to be able to help them. That's your intention, is to find a job where you can help your employer. Be grateful, be positive, be curious, basically be unstoppable. Also, listening. That's a very active physical thing you can do. You can lean in, you can nod, you can pause. These are things you kind of do naturally when you're having a conversation with somebody who you're starting to get alignment with. I wouldn't recommend that you do these kind of forced. It can be detected. It's not that difficult to tell when somebody's not being genuine. But get to that point where you're really, this is really the way you're going to behave, because you are genuinely interested to hear what they have to say. So that is to say, it's okay to do these things if that's the way you feel. Don't. Some people who come to the pit crew, for instance, even though it's a mock interview, they're very stiff. They are very formal. Let's say they're very formal, and that's going to be a hindrance to showing your enthusiasm and interest. So let it go. Let those. You don't have to be really stiff. Lean in, pause. Do the things that you would naturally do when you're having a good conversation. And don't forget to exercise your interview etiquette. So there's another, you send those thank you notes. I recommend you handwrite them. You take a picture of them, or you scan them, and then you email them. You never know if you send them through the physical email, if they actually get there, or when they get there, how long it takes. But writing it by hand shows a little extra effort, and then taking a picture or scanning it and then sending it by email, delivers that handwritten note to them in an electronic means. And don't forget to ask in your interview what follow-up looks like, and then when you should reach out to them next, when they expect to make a decision, and then do those follow-up activities that you agreed to do or requested. If you've requested to get an update in a week or so, then go ahead and call. You may end up leaving a message, but do all of those things. Okay, my last slide, and let's talk to strong introverts. Okay, and I got this idea that I needed to talk about this, and so I just went to Google and I typed in, this kind of thing, and here's what I found out. Is the most common reason that people are perceived to lack enthusiasm is they're not really interested in the job, they're tired, they're stressed, they're preoccupied, they're unprepared, or they're overconfident. Okay, that's number one. But number two is they have a laid-back demeanor. They might be quiet, contemplative, introverted, might be kind of intense. So this and if you're introverted, you probably know this. This is kind of leaves the impression that you're not enthusiastic, okay, that you're not interested, just because you're being who you are, the way you are. Now, you know, some of you people who are just a little bit introverted can, you know, do all the things that I've suggested, and it won't be a challenge for you. But if you're extremely introverted or strongly introverted, then creating an extroverted persona is just not going to work, because it's going to fall flat. Now, remember, it's always good to say you're not necessarily trying to be enthusiastic if you're not enthusiastic, but you need to demonstrate interest. Okay, interest is as good as enthusiasm, and doesn't involve, you know, voice inflection and smiling big. All those things can help if you can do them, but if you're a very serious kind of person, here we go. The recommendation here is to go ahead and deal with that right up front. Okay, right up front at the beginning of the interview, acknowledge that you have a quiet, shy, intense, focused demeanor. Okay, and then you know, call out the elephant in the room that sometimes, you know, your demeanor is misconstrued to be less than enthusiastic, less than interested, when in fact that's not the case at all. Okay, and then you want to give an example of how your calm, your focused, your intent demeanor has been an asset in your success in the past. Okay, so you know, you're not going to change for them, you're not going to be able to change for them, and then you know, they see something in your background that's been interesting for them, or you wouldn't be having an interview. You just want to make sure that, you know, so I was an engineer when I interviewed with other engineers, or I hired engineers. You know, being an introvert was not an issue, right? Because most of us are pretty introverted. But if you end up talking to, you know, other people in the organization, there's where you need to bring up the fact that, you know, you have this personality type, and it's not a hindrance to your work. And in fact, you are, you know, quite enthusiastic and interested, and you've done your homework, and you're going to demonstrate through all the preparation you've done. You know, you're not going to say these things, but this is the way it's going to go, that you are well prepared to be able to help them, and, you know, you've had success even though you're a bit introverted at the, you know, or intense or quiet. So, all right, use your words. If you're introverted, you know, the content of your message can be engaging as a big personality. Don't forget to verbalize the things that you find appealing, intriguing, and exciting about the opportunity. You know, use those words and reference them throughout the interview, right? So keep coming back to, now there's a little trick here, or a little gotcha here, right? Is you don't want to talk too much about yourself, but you do, right? You're going to use your examples from your background to demonstrate to them how you can help them, okay? But you do want to talk about your enthusiasm, your motivation to come to work for them, because as we found out through the survey, it's a big percentage of importance to the final candidate, because in the end, there's going to be, the candidates will meet all the basic requirements that are necessary, and they'll pick the candidate that they believe is the most highly motivated, and therefore will be the happiest and most productive of the group. And so talking about why you're interested and what you find intriguing about the position is something you need to do if you have a quiet, reserved personality. I'm all done. Did any questions come up that I can address right now?
There were some that came up. We could go on with my little piece and answer them, or we could answer them in those that are anticipatory as well.
Are they? Yeah, let's go ahead and do yours, and then we'll come back to all the questions about showing enthusiasm. How about that? Then I can get a chance to review the questions.
Okay, good. that sounds good. There's a lot of things that Mark said that I kind of cut out of my presentation because we're so aligned in so many things. So I'm not gonna, the fact that I don't mention the same thing that he mentions does not mean, just don't read anything into that, because we're trying to give you a complete picture and two perspectives at the same time. There's only one little tiny thing in there that I would suggest that Mark change. See if you can find it and send it to me. I bet you can't find it. It's so tiny.
Is there a mistake? Did I make that typo?
It's just not, no, it's just not quite that consequential, but
Okay.
I just want to say 99.99% and of all these things that you say, I think are fantastic things and a great help to us that are working on doing our interviewing in a very positive and enthusiastic, interesting way. So the first 6 sessions that we talk about all apply to enthusiasm. In other words, enthusiasm goes everywhere, anytime. It comes in now as you are maybe asking questions, showing enthusiasm, even with your question. When you unmute and ask the question, so you're showing interest in things like that in the words you say. So my question to you is, how can we be enthusiastic without preparation? So it's pretty hard to walk into an interview and you're not prepared and you're a little bit sitting on a hot seat here and you've got some stress going on. And so how can you show enthusiasm when you're in that frame of mind? So it's not that easy to do. And so how can we be enthusiastic without confidence in ourselves? So preparation, confidence through preparation and practice is going to give us a lot more opportunity to be enthusiastic. You all know that already, but I thought I would bring it up here. A couple of definitions, feeling of energetic interest. So energy. Sometimes people ask me, what about fighting age? And the problem with ageism and looking at us as too old. Energy is the #1 thing to show. We hired a new CEO in the company. He came in and downsized us twice, and I got to leave on the second one. But he brought in a CFO with him that was 90 years old. Okay. And so I knew some people in finance, and I said, well, how is it working for our new CFO? And he says, that man has more energy. I mean, he's got get up and go than you can imagine. All right. That was his first words out and said, age just went away. So that's one way we can help with that. Absorbing or controlling possession of the mind by any interest or pursuit, a lively interest. So when we're genuinely interested in something and we're genuinely excited about something, we'll show it and we'll demonstrate it. That's why Mark put it up at the beginning, saying one of the most important things we can do is that enthusiasm. We saw that over half the people said, a great many of the people said that enthusiasm is one of the biggest differentiators in the hiring decision. So we want to make sure we do the things so that we can be genuinely enthusiastic. Now, Gordon says it's electricity of life. How you get it? You act enthusiastic until you make it a habit. Similar to Dale Carnegie, act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic. I went to a Dale Carnegie course. It was on Thursday nights from 7 to 10 o'clock after work. Now, all the participants, there was about 30 of us that showed up. We weren't exactly like we woke up in the morning and ready to go. I mean, it was the end of the day. We were mentally tired from today's work. We were physically tired from some of that stuff. And here we are. And we had to do the act enthusiastic and be enthusiastic exercise, where one of the participants got up, we all stood up, we got in there, we repeated the word act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic, getting louder and louder and using more and more body motion, exaggerating to a huge extent. And when we finished that exercise, we all felt better. We had more energy just by acting like it. Now, you don't want to screw up your mind and say, I'm faking it and I'm not really enthusiastic. We want to do it so that we're genuinely enthusiastic. And so I say that it must be genuine and sincere. It's not a fake it until you make it. So there's my first quote that I've ever put on anywhere about anything. The only other quote I would say, if you don't know what you're going to say in an interview, don't talk. That's the other one. All right. So Moravian did a study. Maybe you've heard about this. And he did a study on communications of feelings and attitudes. Now, this isn't just communication itself, but feelings and attitudes. So how do you build rapport? How do you create empathy? How do you do that? we're going to do ways that show our feelings and attitudes. Maya Angelou said, you know, people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So by our actions, our words, and our facial expressions, etc., we're going to send these messages about how we feel and attitudes to them. And so that's how we can create that rapport and build that connection. 7% of the words, 33%, well, I don't know why that message is coming up on my PC. Okay, 38% is how we say them, and 55% of the meaning is in facial expression. So I'm going to repeat that. 7% of the words are spoken. 38% is the way the words are said, and 55% are in facial expression. So there's two ends of the extreme of, are you interested and enthusiastic and excited about something? Are you very interested in something? Versus I'm so laid back that I just don't show much interest. More enthusiastic words that we can say. In fact, I'm thinking about maybe in our resumes, we might use some of the words where you might say generated $500,000 in new sales through, then you might use some of your attributes through passionate and leadership in the services and products we provide. Maybe something like that. It's just a thought that I just came up with while Mark was talking, how we can show our soft skills and our interest and enthusiasm in the words, even in a resume. But nonetheless, we got to say them like we mean them. You can't talk one thing and show another thing. Everything has to be genuine and sincere. So what are we enthusiastic about? Well, my model for interviewing is on who we are, what we do, and how we can help. The I am, the I do, and I help. I love doing what I do. I like using my knowledge and skills, all right? I love creating activities, doing things that result with these types of specifics that are going to help this company and the department, et cetera, move forward. That's where we get to the star stories, and those R's for the results of our activities. We want to show them in two areas, the job itself and the company. The question that we asked in the beginning was, what percent do you think of the hiring decision is made from enthusiasm for the job and the company? Not only the job, but for the company. A lot of interviews talk about the job. They don't often talk about the knowledge of the company and what they know. Now, if there's anyone I would use as an example, I've used him before, but Jared, who got a position at Lockheed, when was asked what he knows about the company, the energy and enthusiasm and excitement in his voice about all the things that he knew about Lockheed would just blow you away. I mean, he just turned on. The light came on. He was all excited about talking about it. And so having the knowledge was really good, but how he demonstrated the knowledge really sold the deal. He did get that job. Took him a year, but he got it. Have a genuine positive attitude. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm not too positive. All right. I don't know how you wake up in the morning. I don't spring out of bed. I don't race to whatever I'm going to do first in the day. It's sit in the bed, make sure I'm not too dizzy so before I stand up, right? So I'm not too energetic at that point in time, but I can get that way fairly quickly by thinking of positive things, listening to some positive music. Boost our energy level. Pick it up just a little bit, still be genuine. But are we really looking forward to talking to the interviewer? Are we really excited to be there? If we say in that opening statement, that statement of enthusiasm, which I call the greeting, it's where you use it, is I am really excited to be here. I mean, are you or are you not? If you don't show it when you say that, it's not going to work. As you think, and Mark covered this, it's what we're thinking is going to drive our words, our actions, how we say the words, our facial expression, all that's going to come from what we're thinking. That's going to be a positive thing that'll help us. And I will tell you this, it will make a huge difference in your interview just with that kind of mindset. Always arrive on time and smile. I got to smile more. I'm not very good at smiling. I got to remember to smile some more. Smiling has a great positive effect on our bodies. It's actually a physical effect. The receiver actually gets a positive feeling and they smile back. And so we double it all over again. Smiling is a great tool to use, but it has to come from within. It's not a technique. What's your posture? Well, if you're truly interested and you have some enthusiasm for this job, I don't have to tell you to watch your posture. You will have good posture to do it. It'll be a result. It's not something. So I can't, oh, I'm supposed to lean in. No, I want to use it as a technique. I want to use it as a result of what you're thinking. And begin with that statement of enthusiasm, which Mark has already talked about. How you tell the star story is as significant as the story itself. So it's just another example of what I previously said. We were in the pit crew and we were talking to a person, and somebody had seen something in his resume. So we asked the star story coach, well, can you tell me more about this particular achievement that you had? And his first words out was, he just kind of chuckled and said, oh, that was a fun one. And then as he told the story, he showed that he was having fun going through the exercises and actions that he took for those results. Feedback from all the panelists said, that's the best thing you did in the whole interview was that little piece. And that was that little energy, that little enthusiasm, that feeling of, oh, that was a fun one. I enjoyed doing this. I like doing this and achieving those results. Stood out that much. Asking questions shows that we really want to learn. We're interested in finding out about things. It shows that we've spent time and effort in preparation, because we can ask a question where, so I was looking at your 10K and in the M&A section 5, the management was saying this, then I have a question about what management was saying. If it's a public company, go look at their 10K and look at section 5. It's ripe with data and information for management on perspective of the company. Look at the about section on their webpage. It tells you a lot about the company. That gives you some information that you can show that you have knowledge about, just as a couple of examples. So demonstrate that knowledge with that lead in. And those questions are going to indicate what is important to us. So if the first question out of our mouth is, what does the benefits package look like? That's a lot different than saying, what is it that I can do for you in the next 9 months for you to say, I've done an outstanding job. All right, I'm looking for the achievements. I would love to hear what your needs are, what your issues are. Then I can start talking to you about how I can help you with those. When something sounds interesting, say so. So when they ask a question and that's kind of interest to you, say, well, that's very interesting. And I'm glad you asked that question. Compliment them. Who gets, as an interviewer, gets a compliment during an interview? Almost no one. What stands out to us as unique and why we would want to work for them is in that compliment. Has to be genuine, has to be real. So within our responses, please don't say that's a good question. It may be a good question, but the only reason I say that is I've heard it thousands of times. It's about the only thing I hear when a question is being asked and the person doesn't know what to answer. So they're trying to make some noise because silence works against us while we're thinking of an answer, and where the pause comes in is much more effective. But I hear that, well, that's a good question. That's a good question. Well, if it really is a good question, rephrase it so that it's not the same thing that they hear. That's the differentiation style. So I'm really impressed that you asked that question. All right. Giving them a compliment saying, that's an important question. You should know about me. So that makes a big difference. And of course, it's got to be genuine. So as part of the close, we can also tell them that they're a good interviewer. If that's true, all right, or find something in the interview that was positive that you can talk about to them in the part of your close. I'm saying, I really enjoyed your questions today. I think that you're really getting the right information to make a good hiring decision. Now, those have to be true. I'm not trying to give you something to write down and say in your close, but this is an example of something that when it's true, find something that you can say to them that was good about what they did as part of your close. And of course, closing, Mark mentioned some of the stuff on that, but it shows that we are truly interested in the job. Now, thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Does not do any of these 3 items. That does not do it. It's got to be better than that. In the workshop, we talk about the close, got some definite steps and options and kind of information we can say in that close. So it shows them we are interested in the job in our close. It demonstrates our confidence, and it also can overcome a weak start. So we would like to start strong and we like to finish strong. If you finish weak, you've killed the start strong in the middle part. So we've got to finish strong. It could definitely help us. And then follow up afterwards. We are still interested in the job, and persistence and perseverance stands out positively. So in that interview, Mark mentioned, we want to find out when's the next time to contact them. When will I hear back? Who will I hear back from? When should I hear back from them? And if I don't hear you back, can I contact you on this date? You get their voicemail. You talk to them. You compliment them, saying you're still interested, you like the job. I was interested in our discussion about this. And if I don't hear back from you and you set another date, that you're going to contact them, so that you're in charge of your job search. You're not just walking out saying, well, I hope they reach out to me, and you don't hear anything. So interviewers want an employee who's passionate, interesting, hardworking, and who'll be a good ambassador for the company. So they're looking at you. And so if you're going to be a customer facing person in that role, then they're going to judge you as, are you the kind of person I want to see sitting in front of one of our customers? Are you demonstrating that? Do you have that work ethic? Do you have the go get it? Do it what it takes to get the job done? If you're truly passionate about your work and you really love your work and you're excited about achieving those results, that will all demonstrate bullet number one. Enthusiasm does draw people to us. In fact, it's contagious. It's kind of hard to be sad and glum around somebody who's enthusiastic. It's not quite as strong as a yawn, but it sure does come close. Yawns are pretty strong, right? And if we're enthusiastic and interested, then there's a likelihood that the interviewer will return that enthusiasm and interest about us. So the steps are like this. Let's do some research and preparation, all right? We've done preparation on resumes. We've done on bio, LinkedIn. We've got our focus. We've done research on the company. We've done it on the industry, the competitors, lots of information we have before we go in. So we get our content ready after we do all this research. Then we practice. So we take the preparation we have and we practice. And so you can come to the interview success workshop. We'll cover the fundamentals. We can also have a regular type interview, still informal. You go to the pit crew, have your mock interviews. Jared did about 4 sessions with me and 5 or 6 sessions at pit crew before he got a job, and said, boy, the real interview was so much easier. Well, of course, he did all that practice and preparation. So that gives us the skills and confidence now. The more practice we have, the more practice we have, the more confidence we have, the more skills we have, and start understanding how to do that interview. So that yields energy, enthusiasm, and interest. And then as a result of that, we get the job. So people that come to the interview success workshop don't show a lot of enthusiasm on day one. I mean, we're down at the basics and we're learning, nor do I expect them to show a lot of enthusiasm, because the emphasis is on learning for improvement. So we're in the preparation stage. Until you get through that preparation stage and you get to, okay, I feel pretty good now. And then you go have an interview and you do pretty well in that interview, and that gives you more confidence. So you can learn one of 2 ways. You can just go through the regular interview process and learn the hard way, or you can learn the easier way with going through some practice and preparation through the pit crew or through workshop, or both. Now let's take a look at those questions.
I think we just had one on enthusiasm, and 2 others on changing careers, so we can hold those. But the one Christy asked, how do I not come across as overly enthusiastic, as a positive and extroverted, extra positive person? Wow.
I would say don't do that.
Good for you, Christy. Well, so and here I've had some time to think about it. So you don't want to be generically enthusiastic. Okay, so if you're an enthusiastic person, that's going to come through. You need to be very specific about what you're enthusiastic about. The job, the opportunity to help, be very specific. I mean, at the end, you don't want people to say, yeah, she was really enthusiastic, but I don't know how she can help us. You know, you got to focus that enthusiasm on very specific things. And of course, ask your questions, which might redirect what you need to focus on. Yeah, just general enthusiasm without achievements to back it up is you're not going to get selected.
Good response, Mark, but don't change your personality. Be your personality. If they don't want that personality, you won't be successful there anyway. So just be yourself. There's another question, I think.
I might have missed it.
I'd like to ask if you'll share your slides with us. So coming into 10 and 11, while you were just headed for the goal line and I couldn't keep up.
Well, the answer is,
Jeff
Jeff has the answer to that. This is recorded. And we'll
Okay.
be through that. And so, yeah, sometimes we kind of go through this pretty fast. But we kind of do this in a tutorial style, so the slides can give that help in memory to you. So look for it on the Career USA channel on YouTube, and you'll see this.
Will do. That's what I'll do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Ann. I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned in your discussion about carrying a notebook in and opening it up. I was very happy to hear that because I am more comfortable during an interview to have that open in front of me and to carry those things. So thanks for sharing that and confirming that was a good idea. What about taking notes during the interview? Would an interviewer find that perhaps distracting?
I would say at the beginning of the interview, in fact, as part of your, after your statement of enthusiasm, you might say, do you mind if I take a few notes during the interview? It's a courtesy request. All likelihood is they're going to be taking notes and you can take notes. And during the interview, if they ask you a question and you want to respond to it, but you say, just a minute, I'd like to take a note and stop. And so they know what you're doing and you can take your note. Taking notes shows the interviewer you're interested in what they have to say and you want to remember it. That's significant. I suggest you when you open your portfolio, your questions are on the left and your note-taking page can be on the right so that you can take the notes as you wish.
Mm-hmm. How about keeping notes of your star stories and things like that and flipping through it? I don't mean to a certain extent, maybe flipping through notes. Do you think that might be distracting?
Yes, I wouldn't like to refer, but if you had a page, maybe the right-hand side of the page of your questions, you got questions on the left side of the page, on the right, you have your R's, just your R's, so that you might could glance at that to say what story might be. And if you practice them enough to where they become secondhand to you, it'll be a lot easier to remember, in your memory to pull that example forward rather than having to rely on something.
Sure. Well, that's a great tip. I appreciate it because I think that would help calm my nerves a bit to have that, perhaps that top page with my notes and to do it. So thanks for sharing that.
You might, if you want to look at the page, says, well, I have several. Let me select one here that would probably be best for this situation. And then you kind of look at your notes and you pick one. And you might do something like that. But I would like you to get to the point where you can recall your notes, and that means just practicing them. So have your stories with the R so that it demonstrates, what soft skill does that story demonstrate, as well as the hard skill knowledge, as well as your actions and the result. So there's some key words I put with the story. So this story demonstrates collaboration. This story demonstrates leadership. This story demonstrates creative thinking. This story demonstrates emotional intelligence. Something like that.
Thanks. That's very helpful.
Others, before we move on? Remembering to smile takes a bit of practice, and don't use the pasted on smile. Here's an example of me getting my picture taken. That's called a pasted on smile, right, Richard? Smiles come from within. We feel like smiling and therefore we smile. All right. Let's move on. A little poll here for changing careers, jobs, or industries. So are you considering changing jobs in our industries? Yeah, maybe I need to look at that. Yes, I am. And no, I'm pretty much got an idea of where I'm headed on. I'm in the right job in the right industry for me. Now, changing industries is a little bit more frequent than changing jobs. Sometimes industries go out. Oil and gas is kind of tough. Hospitality is kind of tough. But at the same time, I would love to tell candidates that I have a CPA. It's not a CPA in manufacturing. It's not a CPA in retail. It's not a CPA in healthcare. I'm a CPA. But if you don't have healthcare experience, they don't seem to want to consider you. So we have to demonstrate to them how we can help in healthcare with that. Anyway, so we've got two thinking maybe I should. At some point in time during your job search, and it gets to be a while, and you say, I better consider different options. Maybe I ought to look at doing that. That could come up. Some say, yeah, it's time to change. I've decided I'd rather do something else. We had a question in the chat we'll talk about. It's been years ago since I was in the IT world. So I want to get back what advice. We'll talk about that. And one of you says, no, I'm focused on it. All right, well, thank you for sharing those results. So many of us are really looking at one or both of these things. Thank you for that. All right, so let me ask you another poll. If you are one of those that are considering or chasing something different, which one are you chasing? Are you looking at the same job with the same industry? No, that's for everybody. The same jobs, but I want to change industries. But I want to do a different job in the same industry and then change both. I want to do a different job in a different industry. So the preponderance so far is changing industries. One considering a different job, maybe our questioner. And 4 so far are looking for changing the job and the industry. Okay, well, good. Thank you much for that information. That kind of tells me how I can direct some of these comments and things that we're going to talk about here today. So Amazon commissioned a study by Morning Consult. You ought to go out and look at this website called Morning Consult and the different studies and things that they do. There's a lot of different information out there. I perused them a few days ago and was kind of amazed at all the stuff that's available. But anyway, they were looking at something Amazon commissioned them and said they found about 61% of the job seekers surveyed are really unemployed, both employed and unemployed, but they're looking for new jobs because of the pandemic. So that has created a huge amount of change, lots of job change, lots of layoffs. Looks like we're beginning to come out of that, but I still think that pandemic has got a tremendous influence on jobs now. Fortunately, we're seeing that they're coming back. Jobs are beginning to show up again. So things are looking much, much better, but more than 50% said that they're really looking for a new job because of the pandemic itself. All right. Let me give you some introductory thoughts about changing careers or industries. Number 1, get a coach. Mark and I were sitting down, we were talking about this and say, what should we do with, changing that? I said, well, this is kind of a difficult thing. It's not an easy road to hoe. So maybe you ought to get a coach to help you through this process, but I'm going to help you some with some things that you can get started with today. If you're going to change careers or industries, it's going to be difficult to maintain a positive attitude because of the change. There's a thing called the change curve that I talk about, where the status quo is going along, then a change occurs, and then things go downhill. Lots of things, but motivation, energy, perspectives. Your attitude can see that job search is a fun thing. Not too many of us have that attitude. So you're crazy. How can it be fun? But it could be if you had your attitude in that direction. So if we're going to do something like this, we really need to maintain a positive attitude. Think of it as a process, not a destination. There's more work that we're going to need to do through that process to reach that destination. So think of it that way. I'm going through the change. We want to be moving forward, turning ourselves to something forward and looking at something in the future rather than going away from something in the past. So if you're thinking that I'm just trying to get out of this, if you're thinking that's not as good as thinking I'm trying to get into this. So that's where our attitude and interest and enthusiasm and energy can come from, is moving forward to something positive rather than getting away from something that was negative to us. Envision a couple of successes if you're pursuing this. What does success really look like given my current circumstances? Because that can differ. A lot of considerations, where you are in the job search process, how long you've been out, what your financial considerations are, what the market's doing, what's happening in the marketplace can change. All that kind of information can say, how would I really define success? Is it getting this type of job? Is it being in this type of industry? What does it really look like? And what does it look like if I just had complete control of the world and I could do this, what would it be? All right. So we talk often about getting the job of your dreams. And this is kind of what we're talking about here. There's three factors to consider when we're thinking about transitioning. So one of them is your risk tolerance. You're going to go through some periods of uncertainty. How many of you like uncertainty? How many of you can deal with the uncertainty in the future? If uncertainty gives you stress, gives you headaches, gives you problems, you can't eat, whatever, then that's going to be something that's going to be difficult for you to do, because you're going to go through some change and you're going to have some uncertainty in going forward, going to experience that. And so how can you tolerate that? What is your tolerance for doing that? What's your financial situation? And do we really have a strong urge to move into a new field regardless of the obstacles that it presents us? I mean, you can think right now of many obstacles that it would present to you, because you look back and say, well, I've been doing this for a number of years and now I'm changing into this. How am I going to show myself on my resume and on LinkedIn about what I'm looking for? How can I represent that? That's going to be kind of difficult for me to do. So there's some obstacles there to overcome and do. Now we can do it, but it's going to take some effort and energy and work and time to accomplish. Commit to a steady march. If you find an obstacle and you give up, then you've wasted all the time and energy you put into making that change. So kind of make your decision now that says, okay, I'm going to go, this is the job I want, this is the industry I want it in. I'm going to do what it takes to achieve that. And I'm committed to that. And if I run into a problem and I run into an obstacle or run into a setback or something like that, that's okay. I expect them to happen. I know they're going to occur. I can accept that and move on. Have a good positive attitude about it. And remember, recruiters don't usually like to work with us if we're changing careers or jobs, because, if we haven't been in that industry forever, we haven't done that job forever, they just don't think our chances are very good. And so recruiters typically don't do that. But if we can show and represent to them to our new target, our new job, our new industry, and do that well, then we can get recruiters to work with us. But we can't show the old resume in the new job. So what's the ideal job? So if you're looking at what that job might be and what you might move to, we're going to look at the excellence, the excitement, and the experience. Now, experience may be the tough part. Excitement could be positive. Excellence, you say what you've done, you do in an excellent way, but you lack some of the experience that you need to come off as a very excellent candidate in the role. So X marks the spot, and we've got a great junction of all three. So excellence is what we do, what we have in expertise. It's like our super strength, and it comes common across all the things we do. You can see expertise in a particular area. So that's the excellence part. The excitement part is what you really have fun doing. A lot of things, we can achieve a lot more when we're having fun than when we're not having fun. We all know that. But what is your genuine excitement about this new gig, this new job, this new industry? So what energizes us? What wants to make us go forward so that we can do that job, and we don't tell them that they don't have to pay us, but we would love to do that job without pay. Experience. Your track record sells. So what we do in the marketplace values, and what are they willing to pay us to do? So we really got to know what the market demand is for a particular job or industry. What's going on? What's happening? Is there a great need for it? Which ones are not doing so well? Why should I not waste my time looking at these particular ones when these others have great more opportunity? How to decide if we want to change? All right, so here's a little step process that I put together saying, do we want to change or not? So we have to perform this self-situational evaluation. Is the career change the right answer to my challenges? And is it now the right time to do that? So we got to do a little analysis. Is it the time? Do we really want to move? Some of you are considering it and you don't know that right now. You're trying to answer this question. Should I change? Should I not change? Can I weather the expected challenges? Is it worth it? Yes, you can almost think of some challenges that you're going to have without me telling you when you change jobs or careers. And you want to say, I'm going to face some challenges with that, but I'm going to have to put some effort and energy into that. So is it worth those challenges? So in your professional audit, what's your soft skills, your hard skills, what skills you're interested in building? All right. If you're moving to a different job, what are the different skills? What are the things that I need to learn? Which task do I enjoy doing the most? What kinds of things do I like to do? So this is the I do side. What type of activities do I enjoy doing? Is this career going to align with the skills, interests, and values? Probably not 100%. How does it align? What skills, interests, and values do you have that does align with that particular change? So I need to do some researches on jobs and industries. Changing industry, what sector do I think is aligned most to our current industry? And is it a high growth industry? So we're going to get more bang for the buck going to the high growth industry before we go to the low growth. On changing jobs, what kind of jobs would match what we do? What are the languages they use to describe that? So you're looking at job descriptions and thinking, all right, this is a different job. What things still align? Some of us call these transferable skills. I kind of hate that word because when you say transferable interview, it means I'm coming from something that doesn't match what you want. So I want to focus on the skills that do match what you want. I don't want to call them transferable. So what are they? What jobs should I consider doing? You haven't picked one out. Here's how to help do it. Now you've got some information. You've done some research. You've got your mindset going. You're ready to take on the challenges and obstacles. You're ready to commit to doing this process. And so now we can decide, is it time to do it? Ready to do it? Do we want to change? So now, well, you say, yeah, I think I want to do that. So let me look at what we need to do in order to make that successful. Number one, what's your action plan? What is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? And what things do you think you have to accomplish in order to achieve it? So we got to sit down and do some reflection. You've got your research, you've got some industry knowledge, you got job knowledge. You're looking at skills, you're comparing things on the job description, and you're saying, these are things that are in the gap. These are the things that I bring. So I need to put some milestones in there to pick up knowledge on those particular areas. And we'll talk about some of those things in the next steps. But what is that action plan? And you have to kind of look at all of these things before you look at your action plan, because it'll define some of the milestones for you. But we have to rebrand ourselves. We can't sell what we were. We need to sell what we are now, what we're headed towards, and how we can get there. So one of the ways we could do this is lead with a story, not our history. History is where we're coming from. The story is more about where we're headed. So while we're crafting this story, ask these questions to yourself. Where have we come from? What elements, the positive things that brought us to this point? Why do we really want to move into this new field? What excites me and energizes me? What's that reason? What is so powerful to say, here's where I'm headed? How strong is that reason? What are we working on in order to make a shift? We need to maybe learn the new industry language. We have to start talking like we are in that industry, using those terms, for example. What do we have to offer, even without direct experience of our new industry? So I can certainly bring some things to a job that I've done in the past that are not necessarily related to my previous job, but are related to any job. What are those things? List those out. This is my starting point. This is what I bring to the table to begin with. And where do people come to us to help? In other words, there's some natural skills that we have. And when people come and ask us for information or some wisdom or some knowledge or some mentoring or coaching or whatever you might have done in the past, what are those things that they're asking you about to help determine? So looking from others' perspective, not just internal perspective, is good for us. What do others see in us? How would they describe us? What does some of these assessments tell about us? And those soft skills can apply anywhere, any job, any industry. So knowing what those are. So here's some ways to try to determine that. Try a skills-based approach on your resume and focus on your story, not your history. So we're going to reformat it a little bit. Instead of using job titles, our headlines are 3 or 4 main and most relevant skills and talents. And rather than tasks and responsibilities, which we always say, don't put in responsibilities, so that our headlines showcase the accomplishments that showcase the skills that inspire and are interesting. So those type of accomplishments are ones that we can do similarly in our new job or industry. Then you can add your work history at the end. That's one of the things I talk about. Carol Brickell does our resume work, and she coaches as well as doing that. And so she's one of the people that can help you accomplish that kind of thing and perhaps change that around to fit this change. Act like a duck. All right. So if somebody has these types of skills and that kind of work, and they embody that role, then we want to be that person. So what do we need to do to have those skills so that we can talk them, show them, live them, tell about them, etc.? We've got to immerse ourselves into the new job and or industry. Hang out in the pond. Find people in the industry. Find the people that do that kind of job and start with them. There are organizations out there that you might be able to join. So if you want to get into project management, there's the PMI, the Project Management Institute. There are other organizations of jobs and industries that get together. Start being present in those to help you get ahead in that industry and our job, into what they're talking about, what their challenges and issues are, etc. Lots of ways that information you can find there. Now we're going to get some interview questions about changing careers, because it's not going to be, we can't hide the fact that we are changing. It's not going to be, we're not going to be able to do that. Some of this history is going to show that we're in different roles, but they'll want to know, how do we decide to change careers, and why are you qualified for this job, this position? How does your background help this? How do you handle learning on the job, and what experience do you have with the duties that this job requires? So it's just the same as, what have I done in my past that I can apply here and talk about that, and forget the previous job and forget the previous industry. I don't use any of those terms. I just use the terms that are valuable and are relevant to the new job and to the new industry. Speaking those terms makes a huge difference, because it sounds like you know the industry. It sounds like you do, and you will, because you've studied that. Mobilize our network, surround ourselves with people who get what we are about, understand the unique benefits and challenges within that job or industry, and connect us with possible clients or other like-minded contacts. This is great informational interview. So I'm considering making a career change. And I know that you have expertise and experience in the automotive industry. I would love to have 15 minutes of your time to discuss with you my strategy or my plan and to get your thoughts and advice. All right, something like that to a person who can help us understand what's going on. I remember when I was in college and I was at the dentist office and I said, man, I've been in the dentist office a lot. I wondered what it's like to be a dentist. So I asked my dentist if he'd spend some time with me about in the dental profession. And sure, you know, he sent an appointment. I went into his office and he talked to me for half an hour about what it's like to be a dentist and the kind of education I would need to be a dentist and what it requires. And said, you know, most dentists are self-employed. They don't work for a company. That didn't even occur to me at the time, you know, and he gave me all that kind of information. And it was very, very helpful for me to decide I did not want to be a dentist. All right. So it was very successful meeting. And live and breathe our job and industry. Get hands-on experience. All right. Maybe we can volunteer somewhere. You might even might do an internship. That could be a possibility. Go to the education arenas. Where'd you go to school? If you graduated from school, and I call them up, so I'm really interested in changing. I'd like to pursue opportunities and internships with other companies to get a hold of and get, you know, some experience in it. You know, what can we do? What can you suggest that I do that? Anything that gets you involved in the actual work. So it would be a stepping stone. On the OJT training would be great while you're searching. Of course, consider your educational resources. So yes, I need to know something about project management. I guess I need to be PMI certified. People don't seem to want to hire people that aren't PMI certified. So what does it take for me to get my certification? Let me talk to people who've gone through the certification process. Let me talk to other project managers. So we need to develop some new skills, perhaps. We may not know something about that, haven't done that kind of activity before. So I need to develop that particular skill. And then track your progress. Tracking your progress is going to help you realize that you are reaching your goal. If we're just focusing on the end goal and that's all we're looking at, and it takes a while for us to get there, and it's kind of depressing as a gee whiz, I'm doing all this work, doesn't look like I'm getting anywhere. We need to make progress tracks. Say, I am getting somewhere. I am having these interviews. I am discovering this. I am taking these classes. I am doing these things, whatever it might be, to show that you are headed and you're on your way to achieve that particular success. So in summary, I would say, as long as we stay curious and hungry and embrace the new challenges, our value evolves with us. You have probably done many different things over your career, and you had a certain value 10 years ago, and you have a better value today, and you will have a better value even tomorrow. But you have to embrace the challenges and the new changes. And people say, yeah, I like new things. I like challenges. Well, okay, this is one of them. So you should be liking it as you go through it. That's the attitude you want to have. Success waits for those who adapt quickly, think creatively, and process the wherewithal to see the process through. So you've got to complete the process, and it is a process. I've heard football coaches talk about, you know, learning football and playing football is a process. The end game, of course, is to win the game. But it's like basketball. You want to learn how to shoot, right? You want to learn how to dribble. There's not a whole lot of chance of getting on the basketball team if you can't shoot and dribble. So in learning those things, we said, okay, now we're ready to be on the team. All right, let me see here. I just clicked on something that I didn't want to click on. When we embark on a journey to change careers, we will actually grow so much that we'll use whatever we learn, no matter what happens. So you're going to learn a lot through this process. It will never be of a disadvantage to learn new things. When I was in high school, my senior English teacher, Miss Campbell, Miss Spencer, great teacher, said, read widely. Learn many different things, many different areas. I was a drugstore delivery boy in 1962, and I learned pharmacy stuff. I learned some stuff about retail. I bought a little tube of plastic bubble, if you remember what that is, blew it up and put it on the register, and we sold out a plastic bubble that day. I learned a little bit about marketing. I learned about prescriptions and drugs, that sort of thing. So it was a great value to me just to be a farmer. Now, I'm not in that industry, but I surely did learn some basics then that helped me even today. In fact, the longest word I know is pipithiazolpyridiniol 10,000 copper oxalate hydrochloride. Can you repeat that one? That's my 76-letter word that I learned while I was working in the pharmacy. It may not be what we expected and what we might experience, because we might have some failure, what we would describe as failure, but it's not. It's just an obstacle to overcome. It's a stepping stone to success. We've all heard that phrase. So we might get some, be down, but understand that, yes, we're going to be down. We're going to have some down times. Give yourself a break. It's okay to be down. What we need to do is minimize that amount of time, get back up on our feet, and keep moving forward. But yes, we're going to have some ups and downs. But we have that challenge to learn new things, put ourselves out there, and we'll be able to find and reach that end goal for something we find fulfilling. Now, a couple of things just to end up. There's an occupational table in BLS.gov, the employee tables, and it talks about employment data, fastest growing, this occupation with the most job growth, and stuff like that. So you can say, what job do I really want? It's a great table to look for. Then there's another one. Let me get back to that. I can't believe I missed that. Sorry. There's another one on industries. And here's industries with the fastest growing, most rapidly, largest wages, salary, employment growth. So here's some areas just from BLS that can help us look at jobs and look at industries to say what's going on in the world. What's the market doing right now? What are those industries doing right now to help us make that decision? So there's a couple of resources for you to take a look at. Okay, finally done. We're about 8 minutes over the time. But would we have time, Jeff? Can we entertain a few more, answer a question or two?
Sure, yeah. I mean, answer question away.
All right. So there was a question asked about transition. Let me go see if I can find it. It was early on in the process. Let's see. What was the question? It was like 12 years ago you were transitioning.
Yeah, Brian asked about software experiences 15 years old, how to use this experience.
Okay. So, Brian, what do you think the major concern is for an interviewer, for a company to hire you when you have your software industry is 15 years old? Any ideas?
The software was proprietary and specific to a business, just a business segment. It was enterprise type software for the corrections industry. And being that it's so long ago, it's just felt like from a recruiter perspective, they don't recognize it like it was an Intuit product or Salesforce or Workday or something of that nature.
I think you're on track, because what's happened in the software industry in the last 15 years? And are you up to date? Can you talk today's software industry development actions? We've moved all the way from green screens to web pages, different type of media now. We got Facebook and all this other stuff going on that's happening. The software is different. I mean, Salesforce has been around for a while, but depending on the software you want. But the major concern that I would have as an interviewer is how current are you on today's software? So there may be some needs that you have to get current on that, to be relevant with that, what's going on, what's happening. You go out there and I'll look on the technical job description for a software person, And they got all these letters of the alphabet with commas in between that I don't understand what they are, right? Which ones are the ones that you should be understanding what they are? And which ones should you be looking at and say, I need to be able to talk about these. I need to know about these. Which ones might fit into that? So while you're looking at job descriptions and things and requirements and stuff, you can help identify what software gaps do I have to fill so that I'm talking like I know what's going on today and understand what's going on today. I imagine that you could hire people today as well as you could hire people 10 years ago. I mean, your hiring skills are still excellent. I think your attitude and your mentoring and coaching, I'm speaking this because Brian was in the workshop yesterday, are all great skills to have to move forward. And those are common to do that. But my major big concern was how up to date with you on software.
Okay.
If I could add something, I was dealing with a job description, I guess it was this morning or yesterday, and they were specifically asking for one particular ticketing system called ConnectWise, which I hadn't used in several years, but I remembered having to actually go through the whole, there was literally a training class you had to take online just to be able to enter tickets in the system. And they were looking for somebody that was familiar with that. And I said, if I don't have this in here, this resume is going to go straight into the bit bucket. It doesn't matter what else is on here. If I'm not familiar with their ticketing system, this one's just a lost cause. And that's where the reading the job description and parsing out what they're looking for can make a big difference sometimes. And I wind up with like 4 custom resumes over stuff like this, but having to add PowerShell information to my resume just had me pulling my hair out. It's like, this thing's been in use for most of a decade, but there was literally the recruiter, if they didn't see PowerShell, they were deep sixing the resume. Like, who does that?
Was that in the required section or the preferred section?
It was